Speaker, today I rise to speak to the Criminal Law Consolidation Bushfires Amendment Bill 2021, and this bill seeks to amend the Criminal Law Consolidation Act 1935, Section 85B, special provisions for causing a bushfire. Mr. Speaker, as you know through your community, as I do through mine, arson-lit bushfires are an horrific act which causes unimaginable consequences for the communities that we present. As many of you in the House are aware, just over a week ago, on the 24th of January, several bushfires tore through the Adelaide Hills area, including the Cherry Gardens and Scott Creek communities, with a number of other communities as far as Echunga and through my electorate placed on the watch and act zone for a frightening a number of hours through that Sunday night. Sadly, it has been identified that at least one potential act of deliberately lit arson may have ignited approximately 6 fires that merged to form a larger bushfire, which destroyed over 2,700 hectares, 2 homes, dozens of properties and buildings, and resulted in the impact, an inconceivable impact on our native animals and environment. Visiting the bushfire sites and animal rescue centres firsthand, as I know many of you have, is utterly devastating to see how fires can completely destroy land, lives and homes. We all know too well of the tragedy that is left behind in the wake of bushfires, and we are only today realising the impacts of the Culley Creek and Kangaroo Island bushfires, as well as the York Peninsula bushfires that burnt through the Adelaide Hills at the start of last year. And sir, our cousins over in the west at the moment are going through their own bushfires, where almost some 50 homes have been lost, 70 homes have been lost. And I know, talking to constituents of mine who are friends with the lady who lost her house up in Bradbury, the devastation that bushfire has had on her and the loss of her home and in her community. And to know that fire in our communities, or at least part of it, was started by arson, is a terrible, terrible thing. There are physical scars imprinted by the ash that lays bare on our land. There is vast environmental devastation from a bushfire. The economic cost to communities and businesses, the mental exhaustion and post-traumatic stress on our emergency responders, and at times the sad, sad loss of life, as we saw on Kangaroo Island last year. So, Mr. Speaker, knowing that this is the devastation of a bushfire under any circumstances, to know that a bushfire can be started deliberately by arson is something that I can't comprehend, and so many of the community can't as well. It's even harder to comprehend that someone who intentionally starts a bushfire that can ravish communities faces a penalty of 20 years imprisonment, where someone who is guilty of general arson to, say, property or motor vehicle faces a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. As part of this amendment, I hope we, as a parliament, can raise the penalty for bushfire arson to be at least aligned with the general arson provisions. This amendment also brings our laws to the same maximum sentence that the Western Australian Parliament has under their Criminal Law Act of 1913, and New South Wales and Tasmania have maximum sentences of 21 years imprisonment. So this amendment is certainly in line with other jurisdictions across the nation. Last bushfire season, 10 people were reported or arrested for intentionally or recklessly causing a bushfire between September 2019 and January 2020. The cost of bushfires to our community is far, far too great for us not to act to try to reduce this number and further condemn this behaviour. Our taxpayer-funded resources are used to extinguish these fires: the water, the fuel, the volunteer first responders, the paid first responders, the cost of emergency responders, air support, the clean-up, the associated social costs on our community. It has been reported that the economic impact of Australia's 2019-20 bushfire season is set to exceed $4.4 billion across the nation. That is an incredible statistic. That is why I'm also moving in this amendments that if an arsonist is found guilty of the bushfire arson offence and has the means to pay for the costs of recovery and repair, the court should require the defendant to pay compensation for injury, loss or damage that results from that fire. And I hope through this amendment we can start to recoup some of the costs sadly borne by all of us. Now, I recognise this bill is only one small measure in the wider social threat that firebugs pose upon us all. Speaking with SES and CFS volunteers over the weekend, I acknowledge the work that is currently being done through the Nomad program. We are forever grateful to the work of the SA Police on their patrol and checking on people who have been identified as a risk under Operation Nomad, as well as the SES volunteers who patrol fire-prone areas on catastrophic bushfire days. But I ask you, the elected members, what else can we do to further extend this program and prevent these fires? How can we better collaborate with our renowned universities to further understand the psychological triggers and signs that lead to arson, and work with individuals to help individuals who have at times this predisposition to ensure that they not only aren't a danger to the community but to themselves. One bushfire is one too many, and sadly this year there has already been one too many arson-lit bushfires. I had a constituent write to me last week describing the sheer stress and horror she's experienced escaping from a handful of fires over the 25 years that she has lived in the Adelaide Hills. She has recalled several of the fires being intentionally lit by firebugs. She encouraged this bill and my campaign against what she has labelled domestic terrorism. And domestic terrorism, I couldn't have articulated the act of intentionally lighting bushfires more succinctly. And I believe the firebuggers who conduct these unimaginable and intentional acts of terrorism should face the maximum penalties. I hope both sides of Parliament can recognise the importance of this legislation and in time as this debate ensures through the House support these amended provisions. We are only halfway through the bushfire season, and several members from my community have approached my office about the urgency of this legislation being passed. I know many of our electorates are also in bushfire zones, and even those that aren't feel the impacts of fires on our communities. So finally, on behalf of the electorate of Wade, I'd like to extend my sincere and most heartfelt and most profound gratitude to the hard-working and courageous emergency volunteers who again put their lives on the line to protect our communities and to fight the flames over that Australia Day long weekend. The CFS are a fantastic organisation in my community, as they are in your community, and on that Sunday, every single truck bar one was out fighting the bushfire. And in fact, that truck that was in the station was the only pumper across my community, stretching all the way to West Terrace, all the way to the beach, and all the way to O'Halloran Hills. So it was also covering the MFS capability that afternoon, because every MFS truck was up in Cherry Gardens fighting that fire. The CFS volunteers on the ground, the MFS personnel who went out there fighting that fire. In a way, there is nothing more Australian than volunteering as a CFS firefighter over the Australia Day long weekend, if I can say so myself. Last Friday night, I dropped around to a couple of the CFS stations with the federal member for Boothby, Nicole Flint, just to have a chat to the crews. And talking to them on the Friday, they just took it in their stride. I remember we rolled into Blackwood CFS, and as we rolled in, they were on parade, all in their yellow uniforms, on parade, getting ready for Friday night's training, as they did, just having been out on the fire front some 5 days earlier. That is true dedication and service. And it was great to join with my community in thanking our local STIRT group, CFS and SES members, on Saturday just gone for a fundraising barbecue, and a big thanks to Drake's Blackwood, Slape and Sons for donating some beautiful snags, Wagon Wheels and Gourmet and Maine for donating produce to the cause. And it was really an opportunity for the community to say thank you to donate, and I know both the SES and CFS raised quite a lot of money on Saturday to ask questions about volunteering and most pressingly spread bushfire awareness. Bushfire prevention is everyone's responsibility, and I would encourage all members of the community to make sure that they have completed their 5-minute action plan, know what to do in the event of a bushfire, and I hope through raising this debate today we can do all that we can do as a community to prevent unnecessary bushfires. I commend the bill to the House.